Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. John Cornett and Jan Sue are standing by in the wings, ready to sing us some songs here. And we have Casper Leach co-hosting this evening as well. We'll be taking, hey Casper, we'll be taking your phone calls and questions and have some film clips. So stand by as we bring out our infamous dancing cannabis leaves. Hey Kevin.
I feel the force.
Okay, our first story tonight is from this week. It's out of Sacramento, California. The California Medical Association, or CMA, representing over 35,000 physicians nationwide, has called for the legalization and regulation of cannabis for adults, according to a white paper adopted by the group on Friday. The CMA paper, entitled Cannabis and the Regulatory Void, recommends that cannabis be taxed and regulated, quote, in a manner similar to alcohol, end quote. The paper also calls for the reclassification of cannabis under federal law in order to encourage research leading to responsible regulation. It states, quote, in order to allow for a robust regulatory scheme to be developed, cannabis must be moved out of its current Schedule I status. Rescheduling cannabis will allow for further clinical research to determine the utility and risks of cannabis, which will then shape the national regulatory structure for this substance, end quote. The CMA is the largest physician group in California and the first statewide medical association to adopt an official position in favor of legalizing cannabis. In 2009, the CMA adopted a resolution acknowledging the criminalization of marijuana is a failed public health policy. The full text of the California Medical Association's white paper is available online at cmanet.org. That's cmanet.org. Our next story tonight is out of Princeton, New Jersey. A record 50% of Americans now believe that marijuana ought to be legalized for adult use, according to a nationwide Gallup poll of 1,005 adults. The percentage of Americans favoring legalization is up 4% from 2010. It's the highest percentage ever recorded by Gallup, which has tracked public opinion data regarding marijuana policy since 1969. The 2011 survey results also mark the first time ever that Gallup has reported more Americans supporting legalizing cannabis, 50%, than oppose it, 46%. Gallup reported that support for legalizing cannabis was highest among self-described liberals, who support it with 69%, and those between the ages of 18 and 29 at 62%. Those guys just have to get out and vote. Support was weakest among Republicans at 35%, self-described conservatives at 34%, and those over the age of 65 who only favored it by 31%. 55% of the male respondents said they favored legalization versus only 46% of the female respondents. The respondents' support for legalization was greatest in the West and Midwest regions of the country and weakest in the South. Since 2005, support for legalization has increased in every demographic polled by Gallup. According to a statement from a press release that the polling firm released, quote, when Gallup first asked about legalizing marijuana in 1969, 12% of Americans favored it. Support remained in the mid-20s from the late 70s to the mid-90s, but has since crept up, passing 30% in 2000 and 40% in 2009, before reaching the 50% level in this year's October 6th through the 9th annual crime survey. If this current trend on legalizing marijuana continues, pressure may build to bring the nation's laws into compliance with the people's wishes, end quote. Next story is out of Washington, D.C. Several members of our U.S. Congress are urging President Obama to halt the Justice Department's crackdown on California's medical cannabis providers and are calling on the administration to reschedule the plan in recognition of its therapeutic utility. On Friday, 9 members of Congress, Representative Stephen Cohn of Tennessee, Sam Farr of California, Bob Vilner of California, Barbara Lee of California, Jared Polis of Colorado, Dana Rohrabacher and Pete Stark, and Mike Thomas and Lynn Woolsey, all of California, sent a letter to President Obama, quote, to express their concern with the recent activity by the Department of Justice against legitimate medical cannabis dispensaries in California. These actions interfere directly with California's 15-year-old medical cannabis law by eliminating safe access to medication for the state's thousands of medical cannabis patients, end quote. Earlier this month, the United States Deputy Attorney General James Cole, along with the 4 U.S. attorneys from the state of California, announced plans to escalate federal prosecutorial efforts targeting the state's medical cannabis dispensaries and providers. Since their announcement, U.S. attorneys have sent eviction notices to landlords and financial institutions of several cannabis providers throughout the state. The representatives' letters to President Obama states, quote, during your presidential campaign, you repeatedly pledged in federal raids against the individuals and collective authorized by state law to use or provide medical cannabis. By pursuing the same harsh policies that have been in place for years, we fear the federal government will push legitimate patients back into the uncertainty and danger of the illicit market. For these reasons, it's now more important than ever to reschedule marijuana as a legitimate controlled substance for medicinal purposes. No longer should the federal government's law supersede the wishes of local citizens who've decided that their fellow neighbors ought to have the right to legitimately use medical marijuana. The letter concludes, quote, we respectfully request that your administration reschedule marijuana administratively or publicly support the adoption of legislation that would change the federal statute to achieve this goal, end quote. In July, the United States Drug Enforcement Administration formally denied a 9-year-old petition calling on the agency to initiate hearings to reassess the present classification of marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance without any accepted medical use and treatment. The full text of the U.S. House member's letter to President Obama is available online at bigassets.huffingtonpost/letter.pdf. That's big.assets.huffingtonpost.com/letters.pdf. Our next story is out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The administration of non-psychotropic plant cannabinoid cannabidiol, or CBD, completely prevents the onset of nerve pain associated with chemotherapy treatment, according to preclinical data published in the journal Anesthesia and Analgesia. Investigators at Temple University assessed the effect of CBD in an animal model of pain resulting from otherwise innocuous stimulus, or paclitaxel-induced allodynia. We found that cannabidiol completely prevented the onset of neuropathic or nerve pain caused by the chemo drug paclitaxel, which is used to treat breast cancer, said the study's lead investigator. The researchers concluded, quote, our preliminary findings therefore indicate that cannabidiol may therefore be effective at preventing dose-limiting paclitaxel-induced peripheral neuropathy in humans. Cannabidiol has been previously shown to inhibit breast cancer metastasis in preclinical settings. In 2010, a series of FDA-approved clinical trials concluded that inhaled cannabis significantly reduces neuropathy compared to placebo in human subjects. The researchers concluded, quote, there's good evidence now that cannabinoids may be either an adjunct or a first-line treatment for neuropathy. Full text of this study appears in the October edition of the journal Anesthesia and Analgesia. In Montanans next November in 2012 will decide whether to reinstate the provisions of the 2004 voter-approved medical marijuana initiative. The measure's proponent, Patients for Reform Not Repeal, gathered sufficient signatures from registered voters in Montana to place Initiative Referendum 124, or I-24, on Montana's 2012 statewide ballot. A representative from the Montana Secretary of State's office affirmed this week. Earlier this year, Montana's state lawmakers approved legislation, Senate Bill 423, amending Montana's nearly 7-year-old medical marijuana law. The act took effect on July 1st. The intent of SB 423 was to reduce the total number of state-qualified medical cannabis patients from an estimated 30,000 to fewer than 2,000. Among its provisions, the new law requires that advising physicians be reported to the State Board of Examiners if they recommend cannabis to more than 25 patients per year. The measure also imposed stricter qualifying requirements for chronic pain patients and prohibits licensed caregivers from receiving any financial compensation for providing cannabis to qualified persons. Since the enactment of SB 423 in Montana, the total number of state-authorized medical marijuana patients has fallen by some 15%. Passage of I-24 would repeal SB 423. Said a spokesman for the I-24 campaign, quote, "This new program does not work. Montanans agree that patients with serious conditions should have access to medical marijuana and that government has no business interfering in medical decisions between those patients and their doctors," end quote. Montana's Senate Bill 423 will remain in effect until next November's vote. Voters initially approved Montana's 2004 medical marijuana law by 62%. That is the end of our hemp news segment tonight. We're going to jump over, and John Cornett and Jan Sue have a brand new song that you just wrote here in the past few hours.
We just rewrote some out in the lobby.
Oh, wow.
So
Just
fingers crossed.
And this
All right.
This is the fun of playing music here.
We're just gonna have fun.
We love this.
That's all.
We love this setup so much, and the good work that you guys are doing. That just willing to go any lengths, including writing a song.
all right. Well, thank you.
Anyway, this is called "We Are Many." We are many, we are strong. Why can't so many be so wrong? We cave into so many lies. Doesn't anybody really care why? Can it be that we are right? Can we be peaceful through this fight? All we really want to see is everybody living peacefully. We are one big family. Once united, we are free. Now it's time to take a stand and do the best that each one can.
Oops.
Once awakened, we shall see the potential for infinity. Abundance when we leave the norm, when we are finally through this storm. We are one big family. We are united, we are free. Now's the time to take a stand and do the best that each one can. We are one big family. Once united, we are free. Now it's time to take a stand and do the best that each one can.
All right.
We'll make it better. We'll get better.
Well, that's pretty good for a first time out. Brand new song. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
All right. We'll have you back here at the end of the show. We are taking your phone calls tonight. If you have a question for us, you can call us at that number there on your screen, 503-288-4448. We're taking calls about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, and helping medical marijuana patients. Welcome back to the show, Casper.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you here. Casper is the host of a nationally syndicated radio show, Time for Hemp, on the American Freedom Radio Network.
It is, and it's also heard all around the world.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they're not just here in America. They've
No.
got some affiliates in other locations.
In fact, today we had on the show somebody from Australia.
Yeah, Paul Benham,
And,
who I've been following for a couple of decades now.
And Paul's making plastic out of hemp oil, which, you know, could create jobs here and could create a market here that would, you know, with the tax base.
He was saying that they'll be able to make hemp plastic cheaper than petroleum-based plastics and much less toxically in a very short period of time. And they don't need huge economies of scale like they need for petroleum.
Absolutely, and it's amazing that other countries are taking the lead in this. When as you drive through places like Michigan, where we heard on the news, and Michigan now, they're not only are they turning off the lights, they turned off in one city, New Haven, 2,000 street lights, and then took the light bulbs out of those street lights, and then took the street lights because they can't afford to turn on the street lights.
And we're seeing that all over. They're canceling kids' classes and school bus drives. And
well, yes, state of Washington, which I want to say hello to the governor and the Attorney General of Washington and Oregon. Your offices are being paid to listen, and so please take notes. We think it's just a little weird that you're not sending little Johnny and little Susie to school on a bus because you can't afford it, but you certainly can't afford to put up another prison and send people out to bust little Johnny and little Susie for smoking a joint. I don't know. I just don't think that you're much of a leader if you're doing that, unless, of course, you're being paid by somebody who has something other than the best interest of little Johnny and little Susie. Just
maybe
saying.
the best interests of the corporate elite, that 1% that some of those folks out there like to talk about. You know what, though? We have a phone call. We'll take our first phone call of the evening. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi
Howdy.
there. I have a question for you.
Good. Go right ahead.
My question is, the current guidelines in Oregon are you could have 4 cards per room.
No, it's not 4 cards per room. It's 4 cards per grower. I have a grow room that has multiple growers in it and multiple card holders. Much more than 4. More than 10 times 4.
It's beautiful, too.
Okay, how do you get around the 100 plants that makes it federal? Because I served a
Well, you don't grow more than 100 plants. That's the real secret there. Just because I can grow, you know, technically 4 times 6 or 40 times 6 doesn't mean I have to grow 40 times 6 if I can grow big plants. And so it's just a matter, if you don't have to maximize your number of plants to supply your patients, then you don't have to. But yeah, there's several federal enhancements. It's not just the enhancement at 100 plants. There's also an enhancement at 50 plants and 25 plants. So once you grow more than 49 plants, you're subject to more stringent federal laws, just the same as when you grow more than 99 plants. There's also, it becomes much more serious if you grow more than 999 plants. So it all depends on which one of those laws you want to take a risk with. Did that make that clear?
Yeah, understood. Yes, understood.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, he wants to say something.
I'd like to say something too. You know, plus you're worried about trying to get around 100 plants. I'm thinking if you've ever been in a grow room that has maybe 60 plants in it and they get nice and big, it's kind of hard to get around those to water them and fertilize them as it is. So I would think you might want to focus on trying to get around the plants that you can grow before you try to get around the law.
Then there's this other whole issue around multiple years of cultivation. You know, we had on our show back last April a lawyer and a doctor named Molly Fry, MD, and her husband, Dale Schaefer, who's an attorney. They were both busted in September, shortly after 9/11 of 2001, with 31 plants. And so the federal government took pictures of their garden that had been made by local law enforcement from the previous 3 years and added all those plants together and said they had more than 100 plants. So even though they were only busted with 31 plants, they charged them with the other plants in the previous cultivation years and got that number over 100. And then they wouldn't accept a plea bargain. They went to trial. They weren't allowed to raise medical marijuana, and they were sentenced to 5 years. They were busted in September of '09. They went to trial in '07. They were sentenced in '08, and they were let out on appeal until March of this year, when they were ordered to turn themselves in on May 1st. And now Dr. Molly Fry, a breast cancer survivor with numerous medical problems, and her husband, a hemophiliac with that blood disorder, they both have started serving a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence, even though they only had 31 plants when the police came in and arrested them. So they can do what they want to do in terms of trying to shuffle those numbers, and the best you can do is fight it, and you might lose. So it's a risk we take if we're involved in this. So did that kind of open your eyes to that whole thing?
Yes, you've answered my question.
Now here in Portland, you know, they were in Sacramento. The political climate in Sacramento is quite conservative, kind of like it is down in Salem, Oregon. But here in Portland, we have, by and large, a very liberal base. So I think they'd be hard-pressed to find a jury to convict someone in federal court here locally. In fact, I even went to trial here in December of 1993, and they offered me a 5-year mandatory minimum plea bargain. Since I didn't take that and I went to trial, they said they were going to sentence me to 10 years. The jury was out for 3 days. Finally, I was acquitted on the cultivation charges. But it's a very stressful situation. So, you know, your mileage may vary.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stanford. Just one last question.
Sure.
Do you see the federal government clamping down on this more, or do you think that they're just going to kind of let it go?
There are a lot of people that are clamping down. You know, in our news segment earlier, we talked about the 4 U.S. attorneys in California and the Justice Department are clamping down. There's this petition process that the White House implemented to address various issues, and in any of these online petitions, marijuana always ranks at the very top of the ones people are asking marijuana to be legalized and rescheduled. So they had Gil Kurligowski, who used to be the Seattle police chief, but is now the drug czar, or the head of the White House's Office of National Drug Control Policy. I always wondered about having a czar in American politics. But anyway, Kurligowski, by statute, is required to oppose legalization of marijuana and other controlled substances in every forum. So they gave him the job of responding to this petition, these petitions. There were several of them. They got 100,000 signatures or more. And of course, he's required to oppose it, and guess what? He did. And so, you know, I think it's wrong that they gave Gil Kurligowski, the drug czar, the right to respond to the White House's petitions. You know, why didn't we have Obama come out, or the Attorney General or something? So the forces of evil are out there. They're trying to roll back our medical marijuana laws. They want to throw us all in prison and have us work in prison labor camps, and we've got to stop them. So there you have it.
Okay, thank you. I did serve a 63-month sentence, and I appreciate your service. Thank you, gentlemen. You've answered my questions.
Thank you. I also want to throw in, I am a disabled military veteran as well. But we have a studio audience member with a question. Go right ahead.
Well, I'm a little confused that the federal government doesn't go after all the plastic that's making people extremely sick, including in baby bottles and water bottles, etc.
Well, you know, they have a whole island of plastic floating in the middle of the Pacific that's bigger than California and Texas put together.
And don't
it just
they
floats out there.
Just encourage the plastic to continue to be made and make us sick, which requires us to go to other means, because that's just one of the multiple things that they're poisoning us with.
Well, you know what I've been saying on this show for years is it's not about what's right. It's not about restoring the plant for these prohibitionists of marijuana in particular. It's not about restoring the plant that produces the most fiber, the most food, the most fuel, and the most medicine. It's about money and power and the continued centralization of economic and political control. As long as they can prohibit marijuana, then they've prohibited industrial hemp, and they don't have to compete with the plant that produces more fiber, protein, food, fuel, and medicine than any other plant, and instead we have to use their toxic, dangerous substances instead. But thanks for that question. We are still taking your questions and calls here at 1-800-723-0188, and we have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, my name's Tom.
Hi, Tom.
And this may be a silly question, but it's about eating hemp products. I'm kind of worried about that because remember back years ago when you ate muffins, say poppy seed muffins, and then they would have a false poppy, like an opium reading.
Yeah, you can get a positive for an opiate in a drug test if you eat poppy seed muffins. However, that cannot happen with hemp protein because the seed does not contain any THC or cannabinoids. The seed is a high protein, oil rich food, and so you can't get a marijuana positive from eating pounds of nutritional hemp seed.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And
so
also,
you can get the hemp seed milk and the hemp seed granola and not have to worry about testing positive. In fact, David was kind enough to bring in this foods that should taste good product, and I want to say we're non-commercial, but we have this hemp chips. It's all natural chips. It's gluten-free as well, and it's good stuff, Maynard.
Well,
so you might want to
try some then.
Try that.
I know that it's safe.
We're gonna have to eat this after the show.
But there is a comment about the drug czar and the political. I hate to be a pessimist, but I really feel that marijuana is in the hallucinogenic category as opposed to narcotics that work on the nervous system up or down. Hallucinogens work strictly on the brain where it doesn't affect the nervous system per se. So I feel that the real reason they want to always keep marijuana illegal because they don't want that hallucinogenic property, that higher conscious awareness. I think that's the real thing going on. And no matter, I hate to say, the ballots the powers to be won't allow that consciousness to really happen. That's my comment on that.
All right. Well, thanks for your opinion. We appreciate you calling in and asking a good question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say, they didn't think they'd allow us to have medical marijuana. Obviously, the federal government's trying to stop that. They didn't think they'd allow us to have physicians assist terminally ill people with suicide. And so they allowed that in the end. And so, it's another battle. There's all kinds of different political roads we can take. We've got the protesters out in the street. They're often catalysts for greater political change and social acceptance. And so we've got the initiatives. We're working in the federal legislature and the state legislature and with local municipal governments. It takes all types of political action to force these kinds of legal and social changes. And so we just can't give up. I think that especially now as we see the expansion of medical genetic technology, nanotechnology, the miniaturization of computers and robots, and artificial intelligence, that if we don't establish our freedom of consciousness to think the thoughts we want to think, then the future of freedom for humanity and life on earth is very grim. And so I think marijuana is a bellwether issue, and the future of freedom depends on us restoring industrial hemp. Not to mention the whole biosphere and the web of life that needs us to quit using all these toxic chemicals, quit cutting down our forests, and return to hemp the very first agricultural crop. Don't you agree?
Absolutely, and I think it also brings forward jobs, which to me is a very valuable thing in today's market, since we have so many people who are desperate to make a living. And you know, marijuana, i.e. hemp, makes it a cottage industry for everywhere you go, because like there in Michigan, they can't afford to pay their lights. Well, if they were growing hemp, they would be able to create enough fuel in their own backyard where they could have the lights on, and they could be paying people in their town to make the energy to run those lights. I just think it's beyond ignorance. I think it's just on borderline evil. If you know the truth and you don't act upon it, then what is your motivation? That's what bothers me. Willie Nelson said, follow the money. Why are they so afraid of this plant? Why are they so petrified and horrified of it being legal? Is it because it really gets you high, like liquor? Or is it because it makes 50,000 different products that they can't compete with and would take the money out of their pockets and put it back into yours?
Yeah, instead of us sending all our money to the oil conglomerates and the Saudi Arabian princes and all the despotic OPEC nations, so people like Muammar Gaddafi can put it in their Swiss bank account, we'll be sending our money to our farmers, and our farmers will be spending it in our communities. And that's when we'll see a whole, I think when marijuana is legalized and we restore industrial hemp, we'll see the whole economic paradigm change, as instead of sending our money to a few large corporations, the money will be sent in a decentralized way. And that's something worth fighting for, even if you don't think you can win. You know, heck, I've been doing this more than 30 years now. When I started, I thought it was going to be 5 years. But persistence pays. You got to keep it up. Just because you don't win doesn't mean you aren't doing the right thing. I've seen many of our friends, like Jack Hare, Dr. Todd McCorea, dozens others fall to the wayside and pass away without ever seeing cannabis freedom, but that doesn't mean we're going to give up the fight.
And another aspect is cannabis is money. There was a time when you paid your taxes mandatorily with cannabis hemp because different colonies had different paper, and that paper was backed with what? There was no guarantee. But if you had a bushel of hemp, that means you had a bushel of oil or fiber or food.
That's true. Just two more points before we go to the film clip. Or maybe we'll take another phone call, but the first cannabis laws in the United States, where the British Crown required American colonists to grow hemp to supply the British Navy and for their sails and caulk for their ships. And so the first laws about marijuana in the United States required farmers with more than 40 acres to grow 10% of their land with hemp. Secondarily, most of the world's money today is made from hemp fiber. It's generally a blend of 70% hemp fiber and 30% cotton. Here in the United States, we use another fiber that's a lot like hemp fiber, and that's flax, so our linen. So our currency here in the United States is 70% linen and 30% cotton. But even those little pins they run across your dollar bill in some of the stores can't tell the difference between 30% cotton and 70% hemp or 70% linen, or flax. We're going to take another call, and then we're going to jump over to a film clip. Welcome to our show, caller.
Hello, Paul. How are you doing tonight?
Very well. How are you?
I'm actually very well, thank you. I have been watching you for several years, and it's taken me until tonight when I saw the partner to your left there speaking that I had to call and tell you something.
Okay.
Okay? I want to tell you thank you so much for speaking in layman's terms. You answer the questions so clearly and break down everything to where anybody can understand it. The point of my call is this. I just wish more people that have no idea what the heck they're talking about would listen to you and your partner there about the hemp industry and how good it actually is for us.
Well, we're trying. You know, we put it out there on the internet and send our DVDs around to about 15 different cable systems around the country. It might be up to 18 now.
That's outstanding.
So we keep. We're going to keep up and keep doing it until
thank
we
you
win.
So much. Keep up the good work. I want to give you kudos and tell you. And the person on your left is who now?
This is Casper Leach, who has.
Casper, I like the way you talk, Casper.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, so I'll let you guys get to somebody that has a question that you can answer so well for them.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good evening. We have a film clip we're going to roll right now, and then we'll be back to take more questions and end up with some more music by John Cornette and Jan Sue. So stay tuned and enjoy this film clip.
And the question of hemp, the question of cannabis, is the most vivid illustration of how this government has overstepped its bounds in policing the private behavior of citizens. When they told us we couldn't plant a hemp seed in the ground, they severed us from the natural cycle. That is what they seek to do. I call it the synthetic subversion, where they want to replace all the natural products on earth that used to be grown out of God's earth and God's seed, and replace them with synthetic products and knocked our farmer out of the agrarian society and the agrarian market and made the ghost towns of our small cities and villages across this country. We need to rediscover a cash crop, one that will allow our farmers to go back to the land, one that will allow our farmers to compete with the petrochemical pipelines. You plant U.S. 7% agricultural land in hemp, you wouldn't have to import another drop of oil. We can replace the spills in the Gulf. We can replace the environmental catastrophe that the petroleum pipelines have cast upon Mother Earth, and instead let our farmers grow hemp as a fuel crop. In 1991, Willie Nelson and I poured hemp oil into my Mercedes diesel and drove it across Kentucky in my bid for governor. That's why he started his biofuel plant. Listen, folks, you all have been handed a torch. Jack Hare, bless his soul, passed away. I'm getting old up here. You know, we cannot carry this ball much longer. You have to become educated. You have to learn the truth. You have to reach out there and grab the responsibility of maintaining your freedom. Every generation must re-win its own freedoms. And those very sacrifices, right up to the very last second I've been talking to you, made on your behalf, cannot continue anymore. What really counts is your all's commitment to what sacrifices you're willing to make in the future to maintain your freedom. And it's right there in front of you. I encourage you to learn the law. I encourage you to learn the political process. I encourage you to reach out there and take responsibility of your own freedom. Live your life like a warrior. God bless you all. Thanks for having me out here in Seattle.
That was Gatewood Galbraith, who is going up for election for the governor of Kentucky next Tuesday. So he's running as an independent. There's a Democrat and a Republican. My understanding is he is running ahead of the Republican, but behind the Democrat. The poll will tell. So by next week, we'll be able to say whether how Gatewood's done in this year's election. We had him here on the show just about 6 months back, and so we wish him the best of luck. He's a very eloquent speaker, as you can tell. We are taking your phone calls, and we have a patient caller who's been standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Is it me?
That's you.
Oh, hey.
Howdy.
Hey, I got busted like almost 2 years ago for possession of marijuana. I was on the Wilson River, and I went down and just smoked a little herb by the river. And
should be your God-given right, if you ask me.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I thought too.
So some state trooper was out there hoping to catch you doing that, or catching illegal fish or something?
He was actually one of the trying to catch guys for fishing illegal.
Sure. But I understand they do get a lot of pot smokers out there fishing, because people who are nice, patient fishermen like to get a buzz every now and then.
Yeah, and it wasn't the season, so.
It's a nice view. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, so am I.
So was it a simple possession bust?
What's that?
So it was a simple possession bust for less than an ounce?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like a $600 fine, which I paid.
Yeah.
And went through diversion, all that stuff.
Now they want to suspend your driver's license for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's something that the federal government required every state to do, and Oregon was one of the last states to do it. But if the state wants their federal highway dollars, they had to pass that law, and that was kind of
how
coercion.
that is, though. You know? How is that? I wasn't driving.
Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense. It's just a punitive action that was forced on us by Ronald Reagan and George Bush and the Republican-controlled Congress. But, you know, Democrats were part of it, too. I don't want to give them an easy bill of health here. You know, Bill Clinton put more people in jail than George Bush did and Ronald Reagan did. So, you know, they're all fighting this war together. And once again, it's not about justice. It's not about what's right. It's not about the plant that produces more fuel, fiber, food, and medicine. It's about money and power and the continued centralization of economic and political control.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've seen all the stories to where if, we legalize marijuana like some other countries have, that we would get rid of all the money going for, you know, like the DEA. Mm-hmm. But they think that, once you start marijuana, it's going to lead to other things.
That's one of their gateway drug theories, been thoroughly discredited. The National Academy of Sciences, in their report, Marijuana as Medicine, debunked it and said there is no validity to that gateway theory, that it leads to other things.
Yeah, and that's baloney.
I agree. Hey, I want to thank you for your phone call.
What can I do to help?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. You see that website right there, cannabistaxact.org? That is a initiative drive that we're organizing, and right now we're at about 40,000 signatures. We need 87,000 signatures that are from valid registered Oregon voters by next July. As long as we get at least 87,232 valid registered Oregon voter signatures, then we're going to qualify for a vote. And then we can try to win that vote in November, a year from now. So please,
door-to-door with a...
please go out there and get the petition. You know, at that website, you can print a single signature petition sheet and sign it and mail it in to us. You can also print out multiple signature sheets in our volunteer package, and we'll mail. You can get your friends and family to sign that. Then you have to fill out the circulator box at the bottom and then mail that back into us or bring it into our office. Please help us in this petition drive because we need your support. Right now because we need 87,232 valid registered Oregon voter signatures, we have to turn in more than that. We need to turn in about 130,000 signatures. So we have 40,000 now. We're about a quarter to a third of the way.
It'll be done.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, it'll be done.
Well, I'm working hard at it. You know, I have personally put about $75,000 into it so far. And so outside of me, I think we've raised about another $4,000. So anybody out there, there's a tax credit for political contributions here in the state of Oregon. It's actually kind of like a loan. If you file your state taxes in the state of Oregon, your income taxes, there's a little box you can check and say, I made a $50 political contribution, and you get up to $50 completely refunded back by the state. So if you were expecting a $100 refund, you get $150 back if you made a $50 political contribution. If you were going to have to pay $100 in taxes, you know, just as a round number, and you had this $50 political tax credit, you'd only have to pay $50. So look at it as a loan. You can loan us the money up to $50 a person or $100 for married couples filing jointly. Then the state will pay that back. You can go to our website. We've even hired the premier campaign finance company in the state, C&E Systems, to handle all our petitions and all of our contributions and file all the reports in a timely manner with the Secretary of State Elections Division. So they will take that petition in. If you go to our website, click on the donate button, it'll take you right to C&E Systems website, and you can make that contribution.
I'm there.
All right. Well,
thanks a lot for talking to you guys. I've called here so many times, and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for calling. And thanks for bringing that up. We certainly need help in our petition drive. certainly need all the help we can get.
Sure can.
So we are taking your phone calls. If you got a question for us tonight, call us at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We got about 12, 15 minutes left to go here, so we can take a few more calls. So yeah, you had Paul Benham on your show, and he's doing these hemp plastics.
Hemp plastics and hemp foods.
Hemp foods. He says that in Australia you can't eat these foods, though. They say it's you can make hemp fiber, you can grow it, but you can't eat it.
Right. And
we're here in the United States, you can eat it, but you can't grow it.
And if you put it on the shelf, you have to put for not for human consumption.
Yeah, because they don't want humans eating it.
That's
Maybe
right.
it's okay for a cow to do that.
They should do that for the Hershey bars and the Snicker bars they put
That's
out.
true.
Not for human consumption.
Right.
Or the plastic bottles that they put the water that they sell us to. Not for human consumption. Now, I do want to reiterate Paul's comments earlier. It's the money. They are doing the smoke and mirrors going, ooh, it gets you high, we got to outlaw it. If marijuana didn't get you high, they go, ooh, it stinks bad, we got to outlaw it. They find a reason to outlaw it, because what they really want to do is make certain that you and I cannot put together a company that will compete directly with the petrochemical companies, the pharmaceutical companies, and all the groovy things that are made from this plant. And these jobs are waiting for us to grab. All we got to do is call it a jobs program and make it clear. You are the only people who think that we're trying to outlaw this because it gets you high are the ones who believe the propaganda. Our leaders know, because OPEC and all the oil companies say, here's some money to get you elected and make sure marijuana stays outlawed. And that's true with the cartels too. Instead of our tax dollars being generated from products and creating jobs for this, we're creating jobs, for the cartels. And that money is going to the black market, and it's not being regulated and overseen. So really, we are creating a lot of jobs, prison jobs, and we're creating a lot of jobs for the black market, but none for little Johnny and little Susie when they grow up to do. No great products that are going to be for our consumers to create, and no future for tomorrow, because our planet's not going to be here from the destruction of all the things that come from the.
I am sure.
I'm sorry. I'm on
no,
a
that's
soapbox.
okay.
I can't
That's
help
all
it.
right.
I get so mad.
I get that way too. But that website right there could change everything. If you could help us put this initiative on the ballot, that could change the whole economic paradigm and return money to our local farmers. I'm sure if we can get this thing on the ballot and we can get the message out that this is the plant that makes more fuel to stop us from importing poison petrochemicals, more fiber to stop us from cutting down our forests and making paper and building materials, more food like this bag of hemp chips here and so many other things, and more medicine than any other plant, that we can win this election. So please help us in that. We have a caller standing by. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello, caller.
Good evening. How are y'all doing?
Pretty darn well. How are you?
Great, great. You guys sound so different on the phone. It's great.
Hey, well, you know how those telephones are, those little tiny speakers.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Well, I was a cannabis director in Indiana. I've also canvassed all over, so I'd definitely like to help you guys canvass. That wasn't my question, but are you guys still doing paid positions until the end of all?
Just a couple, because I'm the only one paying for it right now, and so I can only afford a little bit. We did, I think we've got 3 people working on it right now. We did a big benefit that lost a lot of money this summer, and so we had to lay off a lot of petitioners, or we would have already made the ballot.
I could volunteer for a little while until I prove myself, too.
I would really appreciate that. That would make a big difference.
Yeah.
The good volunteers are much more likely to be the next people to get hired.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I put my money where my mouth is. But my real question was, I've lived in Northern California for about 5 years. I had a couple interesting experiences with the task force down there. Of course, Mendocino County's being very proactive, if you know much about the area down there, and more so than most counties. Well, maybe Shasta, and there's a few others, but anyway.
Shasta, what is that other one? Siskiyou County? That's a nasty one there.
You got it, exactly.
Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, those are tough counties in California, too.
Yeah, down south, you forget about it. I mean, those places are, I don't know, horrible. And I mean, the oppression, as far as that goes. But my question was when, I don't want to mention too much about this event because it's, not 7 years old yet. And so but one of the things they did, which I thought was very interesting, I don't know if you've heard about this, but they took, at the very end, they had, a couple, fifth wheel trailer size full. And they made the guys go out and get samples, 10 or 20 of them, and made them go out and get samples. We didn't even know all this was up there, We were just doing our little thing, And,
There's a lot of medical cannabis growing going on all over California, that's for sure, and all over every state that has medical marijuana.
Sucks, Yeah, and it sucked. But they did take burlap sacks so that they wouldn't get molded.
Uh-huh.
And what we had heard that they were taking DNA so that they could patent DNA, the life to these plants before we even legalized it. So when we legalize it, bam, they're already patented.
Well, that's a good point, and it's something to consider. And in fact, we considered that in drafting our Oregon Cannabis Tax Act petition. And we put in that all strains of cannabis are free and that the sale of all strains of cannabis seeds and starts will not be regulated, and that they're only and people can grow their own without any regulation. So we allow the sale of seeds and starts of all strains of cannabis. So they won't be able to patent them if they're already in the general public use, and so that's why we tried to design our petition specifically to avoid those kinds of pratfalls. But I want to thank you for your questions and comments. We are down to just about 6 minutes left here. Maybe we can take one more caller in there if we get one in. But Casper, tell us a little bit more about your radio show. Do a little pitch for your show and how people can listen to Time for Hemp on the American.
Those of you who are tuning in and don't know much about the show, it's mostly found on the internet, most easily at AmericanFreedomRadio.com. But there's also a website called Time, number 4, the digit 4 Hemp, Time for Hemp, that has lots of downloads that are available for free. And we also do on that website a Time for Hemp music podcast that features all the hardworking musicians from all around the world singing about how fantastic this plant is. And then we have a Time for Hemp Today podcast that features hardworking activists from all around the world and a little bit of music. Monday through Friday, we're live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. We have guests from all around the world featuring the truth about this historic plant and the great things that you can make from it and all the reasons why this prohibition must end.
All right. Thank you, Casper. We have a question from our studio audience. Again, go right ahead.
Can you go over the conditions that do qualify for medical marijuana, Paul?
Sure, I'd be happy to. If you're out there and you have chronic pain, that's the largest single condition. Chronic pain, chronic severe nausea, muscle spasms and seizures, glaucoma, and cancer, AIDS. All of those qualify for medical marijuana. Severe nausea and cachexia. Cachexia is the inability to eat. Not a problem for me, but there's a lot of people out there it is a problem for. If you have any of those conditions, then we have doctors who can help you get a medical marijuana permit all across the country. You can call us here in Portland at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you're outside of the Portland area, you can call us toll free at 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. And we have doctors who can help you get those permits. So if you can't, your doctor won't, or you don't want to see this in your permanent medical record, then we can help. Just contact us. Our website, hemp.org, also will tell you about our clinics, the petition drive to legalize marijuana in the state of Oregon, our TV show, and lots of hemp news as well. So I want to thank all you watching. Anything else you want to say in closing here, Casper?
Yes, get out and get this petition organize. We need their signatures. We need to make a difference. Oregon can be a leader, not just in the United States, but in the world. So you
Looks
can
like
make a change.
there will be votes in Washington, there will be votes in Colorado, and here in Oregon, inshallah, God willing, we're hoping. Thank you for watching. We're going to go out on the great tunes of John Cornette and Jan Sue. We'll see you next week, and help us restore hemp. Good night. Hey, John.
Deep water and cold like the night. I stand with arms wide open. I run a twisted mile. I'm a stranger in the eye of the Maker. I could not see for the fear in my eyes. I could not feel for the fear in my life. From across the great divide, in the distance I saw a light. Jean-Baptiste walking to me with the Maker. My body is bent and broken. My mind jumping beats. I can work the field of Abraham and turn my head away. Not a stranger in the hands of the Maker. I see for the fog in my eyes. I could not feel for the fear in my life. Brother John, have you seen the